Hey guys, Diablo has been through a lot of reworks, a lot of changes, a lot of buffs, a lot of nerfs. But recently I've been noticing a trend, and a lot of people are avoiding one of his most powerful builds, even though it's never been nerfed. Or at least it hasn't been nerfed in a long time. So what happened is Diablo received a rework, and then he received 3 buffs, and then he received very small nerfs after that. And a lot of people originally went for W build after his rework because it was a build that brought in a lot of damage, a lot of utility, and it was just a very consistent build. And then the competitive scene started still going back to Q build. Why? Because Q build had a really strong engage, and if you caught one squishy person out of position, you automatically won a team fight. So it was one of those builds that was just like, it worked and it was great and competitive. But that doesn't mean that this build that I'm going to be showing you today isn't good anymore. And in fact, I still think in many situations, it's still the better build. It's just that people are so used to these blow-ups that they don't really know what to do. So, let's talk about it a little bit. Level 1, I will pick talents that are always situationally. So, for example, and just so you guys know about Diablo, I've used Diablo to carry in multiple ranks multiple times. So, one season I got from Gold to Masters, another season I got from Plat to Grandmasters, and every time I move up with Diablo, I sit around a 65 to 72% win rate depending on the season. So, he is one of the heroes that I really enjoy playing, and I think both of his builds are situationally good. This game we start off really struggling. We start off down kills, down levels, down structures, down just about everything. So let's talk about it. Level 1, every single one of these talents are amazing in their own right, okay? And every single one should be used in certain situations. The first thing that I always look for is how much spell damage do they actually have. If they have a lot of spell damage, I almost always will go Soul Shield, because you can become almost unkillable with Soul Shield by picking up upwards of 75% damage reduction from spell damage. Really, really powerful, extremely valuable, and it's an amazing way to deal with double mage in a composition. In fact, if they have double mage in a composition, you pick Soul Shield, there's pretty much no way you lose, which is just amazing. Then there's Devil's Due and Feast on Fear, which is a huge debate between a lot of Diablo players which one you're supposed to take, when I just tell people you take them both, okay? You take them in different situations, though. So if you're in fights that are near waves, I almost always go Devil's Due. This means if you're on a map like, let's say, Tomb of the Spider Queen, where every fight is near a wave, then you're always going to have a globe during these fights. If you're on a map like maybe Battlefield of Eternity, where you're going to be fighting away from waves a lot of times, then it's not so good, because you won't be getting consistent globes, and you'll go entire fights without getting any value off of Devil's Due. Feast on Fear, however, gives a lot of healing. Most team fights that you use Feast on Fear, you'll get around 30% of your health back. And why 30% when it can go up to 36%? Well, what ends up happening is that if you overlap at all, which most Diablo players do, you'll slam someone against a wall with Q, and then you'll flip them with E. You will be overlapping your heal, and thus you will not gain the full amount. So usually in a fight, you'll get 2 to 3 combos of Qs and Es, and usually one of your Qs doesn't actually hit the wall. So it's usually 2 Es, 2 Qs, 1 Q hits the wall, both Es get the value of it, and comes out to be about 30% of your health. 30% of your health in a team fight is really, really good, especially in this build. So the reason why this build is so strong for getting extra healing is because with just a little bit of extra healing on this build, you become unkillable. And that's why I really think this build is very underrated, especially since Diablo is a hero that tends to have a really low win rate right now. And I think it's because people keep trying to go these all-in builds. And if you notice in these team fights, I'm not going all-in, right? I'm staying back, I'm firing off Ws, and I'm just trying to push things away from my team. And I just go, I throw out some Ws, and then I go back to just hanging out and chilling, right? I'm not ever doing anything too crazy in this build. And I'm not going in like a ridiculous amount either. I mean, you see, I'm the only kill on our team, and at the same time, I am I'm just playing safe, and that's it. So you see, I just fire off a W, I fire off an E, I fire off another W, and I stay at full health. And it's very easy to stay very tanky and keep your health up. Almost all the damage that I take is healed back up on Ws, but any extra damage or an overwhelming amount of damage can always be healed up by using the Feast on Fear from level 1. Level 4, you go Souls to the Flame. This build is a W build, and so you want to be abusing the Ws in this build. You will be using this to not only get souls, but this is also your healing, and it's a really good amount of healing. Right there, I should have slammed against a wall and then tanked the towers as she walked around me and then flipped her back around again, and we would have gotten the kill. But we also likely would have died with myself, and Treebeard would have died as well. So it's better that I just took the safer route, which ends up killing me anyways. So we are now down level and a half. They have their ultimates already. They've got their level 10s. This is a Master to Grandmaster game. Every single member in this... Or sorry, it's a Diamond to Grandmaster game. Every player in this is anywhere between Diamond and Master 8K. So it is a higher ranked game. Now, Souls of the Flame, not only is it your healing, it's your... I don't know why I did that. It's your soul gain. So you'll be able to keep high souls, and the cool part about this, about having souls on Diablo, is it increases your value. So Feast on Fear, so your souls give you more health. Feast on Fear heals you more based off your health. Then you also have Souls to the Flame, which heals you more based off the amount of souls you have. So once you hit 100 souls, you are very tanky. So right here, I bring these closer and say die to turrets, but we end up handling this pretty easily. Anywho, Eternal Flames is another thing that really makes this build powerful. What this does, it essentially makes it to where you can fire off a flame, and then you can stun someone, fire off another flame, stun someone, fire off another flame. You'll see some fights, I get a lot of these off. So I do a quick interrupt to mid, and I'm still playing very safe. This build is a must for Lightning Breath, okay? And I'll show you why. Not necessarily this, but this is not a bad Lightning Breath. So, when you're picking this build, what I usually look at is I look at the enemy team and I go, who could I burst, and is there any reason for me to burst this? Like, do we win short or long fights? If you win, if the enemy's like hard lose in long fights, then this is a great build because you can usually survive the burst of a short fight, and then you automatically win the long fights because you have so much sustained healing, which is why I like this build. However, if you're going against a team that's really good in long fights but it's bad in short fights, that's when I like going the standard Diablo build right now, the most popular one that utilizes Devastating Charge, Malevolence, and Apocalypse, where you charge them. Sorry, you Apocalypse, you charge them, hit them against a wall, flip them into the Apocalypse, 2 Malevolence auto attacks, and they are dead. So if you're against a team that is bursty, I highly recommend trying out this build. If you're against a team that is very sustain heavy, I recommend trying out a different build. So you can see their team is pretty bursty. Greymane, if he goes in, very burst damage oriented. Chen, he's going to try to barrel, he's going to try to full combo or whatever, and then Kira, same thing, she's going to go in. They want to take people out fast. They don't want to take long fights against against Valas and Arthuses and all that. So my goal here is to create such a beefy body in the front that they won't be able to kill anyone on my team, and at the same time I'll be able to eat all of their damage, heal through it, and continue taking them out. So this build is really, it hits your major power spikes at 7, 10, and 13, and I'll show you a little bit why. 7, you hit your power spikes because you can get multiple W's off. 10, you hit your power spikes because, of course, Lightning Breath. And 13, you hit your power spike because you can get spell damage that not only increases your healing, but it also makes it to where you get more. And look at how much healing I'm getting, guys. 150 each time that my W hits a target. It is insane. I don't even have this spell power yet. So when I get spell power, I'm going to be dealing more damage and I'm going to be healing more as well. Not to mention that it's going to buff the damage of your Lightning Breath. But look at that healing that I can do. So not only did they overcommit to a fight, but I was able to heal through all the damage that they overcommitted, kept my team alive, as well as we were able to get a kill. I then get another W off, we lower her shield, I flip her, I get another W off. You can kind of see how many W's you can get off per fight, and even if you get really low in a fight, you just continue on and continue pushing. Now that I have this spell armor, or so the spell damage, I will be using the spell damage in combination with my Q to do crits and bursts. Now, it's still not as good as a Devastating Charge, because Devastating Charge baseline is 80%. You're only going to get a max of 30%, but you still can utilize it for sure. Not to mention, the main reason you pick up this is to increase your survivability, as well as your Lightning Breath. 30% increased damage on Lightning Breath is game-ending. It's like getting nano boosted when you Lightning Breath. If you've ever watched a nano boosted Lightning Breath, you can see that it really does drop people. So just keep that in mind. That's the whole goal here, is essentially when you hit 13, your goal is to fire off a W, slam someone into a wall, fire off a W, flip someone, W, and Lightning Breath. And that last W, sometimes I won't cast if I have a really good position for a Lightning Breath. I just want to get the Lightning Breath out sooner than later. So you'll see that. However, against their team, I may Lightning Breath a few times just so I don't get killed by the Wandering Keg. Because you're unstoppable while using Lightning Breath. So sometimes I'll use Lightning Breath just for the unstoppable. It's a pretty rough cooldown to use it just for an unstoppable, but sometimes you have to do it just to make sure that your team's in a good spot. So those are your major power spikes. There is one more power spike that certainly adds up, which is the Debilitating Flames at level 16. Now, there's two options in this build that you can go for. Debilitating Flames or Overpowering Nightmare, and there is actually a slight third one of Domination if you're good at it, and if your team is willing to follow up on whoever you charge into. However, I recommend primarily going for one of these two talents, and I'll explain why after this team fight. So, we go for this first, I fire off a W, and then I immediately Lightning Breath. The great part about this, Lightning Breath applies slows, I have the full 30% spell power, and I do half of every single one of their healths on the enemy team. With that half health that I did, it's very easy for us to clean up one or two people and automatically win every single fight that's fought in a cluster, which is really, really nice. I try to pull back the Kira. This is one of the easiest ways to counter Kira, as if she uses her E for long duration, just walk her back in the middle of your team, so that when she ends up dropping off, it's an easy kill. So, level 16, I find that if I'm going against those burst teams that I was talking about earlier, you go Debilitating Flames, because you can reduce all of their damage by 50%. There's no way they burst you when their damage is lowered by 50%. Overpowering Nightmare, I use only against teams that have a melee auto attacker that requires those auto attacks to win. For example, a Zool or a Twin Blades variant, you can flip W, flip W, flip W, flip W until the whole fight's over and there's no way you die. Not just that, it's a lot of peeling potential against melee heroes, which is really nice. But 90% of the time in W build, I go Debilitating Flames, because in combination with Eternal Flames, where you get resets on your W, you'll be able to easily get multiple stacks on everyone on the enemy team, lowering all of their damage by 50%. Remember that you only need to slow them by 25%, meaning that you only need to hit people 5 times with your W, and you mostly hit them twice. If you can shotgun them with your W, then you instantly reduce all of their damage. So you'll see a few times I will charge in against a wall and immediately fire the first W into whoever I charge, just to reduce their damage. But yeah, I get my spell power, and then I immediately Lightning Breath, doing a lot of damage, instantly breaking the shields, and I may end up interrupting a few things from this Chen. Flip, W again. You see how slow they're all moving, and as long as they're moving slow, their damage is also reduced. So we can kind of just hang out in these fights. There's not much that they can do. If you saw, I did want to get a little bit of damage off on the Alexstrasza, so she would give a smaller heal to whoever she had Lifebinder on. And even in this situation, I have Kira and I had Greymane on me that entire fight, and it's still pretty easy to just drop people, you know? Like, oh, right there was something that I didn't actually explain that's really good in this build. If you ever have a situation where the fight's going off in this direction, what you can do is you can fire off a W in one direction, and then get in a position to where you can flip them so that when the W returns, they get hit by the full return of it. So right there against Alexstrasza, I smacked her into a wall, I fired a W to one direction, and then I moved in that same direction, and she went around the back of me, and then I flipped her into it and immediately killed her with my W. You can see, like, they can't really do anything to me, except for the fact that I did run out of mana here. I'm trying to hold this for as long as possible so we can get the bottom objective, but at the same time, I don't have any mana, so I just need to make my way out. You can kind of see the value of these team fights, though, as after I get that Lightning Breath, I am the second highest damage on our team, as well as the amount that I'm tanking is incredible, the amount that I'm healing is incredible, and I do have the most kills out of both teams, despite the fact that this is a build that's not all about getting kills. One of my favorite stuns against the wall is the one that I just did right there, where instead of me trying to aim a wall stun, I walk up against a wall, flip someone in the wall, and then slam them. And it works really great with this build because you can fire off a W, walk in front of the wall, you can flip them, fire off another W and immediately slam, and then another W. So you can essentially get 3 Ws on one target while stunning them and in the direction of the first W. So for example, you'll walk here, fire a W back this direction, then you'll flip them, flip them W, slam them into the wall and W, and all 3 of the Ws will hit them 3 times. As well, sorry, all 3 of the W's will hit them twice, including the returns, and it's insane. So that's essentially this build in a nutshell and how you're supposed to play it. At level 20, I usually end up upgrading with Hellstorm, primarily because I'm going to be increasing the spell damage of my breath, and I want to make sure that my breath gets the most value. But don't worry about if there's other talents you prefer. So for example, a lot of people that used to use this build in the competitive scene would go Domination and then would go Hellgate, and then you would Hellgate, charge someone, flip them, and push them back into your Hellgate. My only issue for that in this particular build is that you're wasting all of your W resets just to get 1 stun on someone. So I'm not a huge fan of that combo. Lord of Terror is also an idea if you're going against really beefy teams. And because you can go through and get everyone really low and then boom, steal the last 10% of their health. But generally, I find that even against beefy teams, having a Hellstorm or a Hellfire, Fire Breath, whatever, Lightning Breath, lasting 2 times longer sorry, 3 times longer, because it's 200% longer. What I prefer about this is that against really beefy teams, they usually can't kill you during breath, and so you just win every objective that you breath on. For example, for this last objective that's going to happen right here and right here, it's going to be very easy for me to pretty much just stand on 1 point and breath while one of our team caps it. Right here, if I had breath, I might use it just to make sure that I don't get pushed away, but instead I just push one of the enemies so I can escape. It's another thing that's really underutilized with many different builds of Diablo is people just don't really use their Q as an escape that much anymore. So even before 20, I use this to get all of the damage. It scares them off, but if I would have hit 20, it would have been free game just from the objectives there. Right there, I should have fired a W and then a flip and then another W, but it's not a big deal. We win the objectives for free because we only need to win 1, and we just got it with that Sylvanas. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you can figure out if this is the build you want to be playing. Again, both builds are very good. Diablo, I will say the one problem with Diablo, and my whole reason why I think his win rate is low, is that people go in too early. Diablo doesn't really have an escape. So too many people go in the second that they see a wallbang, or the second that they just they feel it's time to go in. When in reality, if you're playing this build, you should be going in only when the enemies are in a position that breath is going to kill them. And in the other build, you should only be going in when someone's out of position and you can kill them almost instantly with a Q. And those are like the only real times you should be going in, unless someone's making like a major mistake or you guys are fighting over an objective. But hopefully this showed you a little bit of the playstyle of Diablo and how you're going to win with this. We were behind the entire early game. Then the second I got Lightning Breath, I won every single fight with Lightning Breath. And I mean, of course, my team did a lot of the work. Can't sell them short. But being able to do about half of everyone's health with Lightning Breath, and then once you get 13, you get that spell power. Being able to do like 70, 80% of everyone's health with Lightning Breath makes every team fight very, very easy to win. So feel free to try out this build. It's a pretty straightforward build. It's pretty easy to understand. And it is rather underrated. I just looked it up right now, and less than 10% of the games played are going this build. So I would really recommend it. 90% of the people are going Devastating Charge and that standard build, and yet they're all sitting around 44%, 41% win rate, depending on the ranks. So feel free to try this one out. See the playstyle that I used it in. It's great for maps where people have to try to fight over an objective and you just pop a lightning breath and call it a day. I think on maps like Tomb of the Spider Queen, though, it's a little risky because people can just walk away while you're breathing. But remember that breath also does apply a slow as well as your W applies a slow. A hero that works really well with this, if you ever want to be duo queuing with someone, is Phoenix. Phoenix does 50% more damage on his Purification Salvo if the enemies are slowed. Lightning Breath immediately applies a slow. It also lasts for 2 seconds. So you can apply the slow and then move your breath over a bunch of people as they're about to get hit by Purification Salvo, increasing their damage, while also melting them down to the point that they usually die to Purification Salvo. So if you guys are interested in duo queuing, one person wants to play tank, one person wants to play assassin, feel free to try out this build. At the same time, if you want to play anything else that has, say you want to queue up with a support, I'm a big fan of Anduin with it right now, as long as you guys can communicate really well, where Diablo says, hey, someone's getting out of position, Anduin light bombs, he charges in, stuns them once against the wall, light bomb stuns them again, he flips them, and then fires off a lightning breath, finishing off anyone who is left. Maev is also another great one to combo with. You can use your lightning breath in combination with Warden's Cage to bring everyone in and do a ridiculous amount of damage. So the cool part about this is you can play it alone, but it synergizes well with a lot of heroes. So feel free to try it out, practice it a little bit, and let me know what you guys think about a rather older build on Diablo, but at the same time, it's still an underrated build. Thank you guys for watching, and feel free to check out my other videos.